So, Ian Wright is standing for the Green Party in the constituency of Falmouth and Truro. Ian, could you tell me some of the reasons why you're standing for the Green Party this time?
Firstly, I think it's important that the people of Cornwall are empowered to solve their own problems. There's far too much centralisation of power now, with more and more of our services being governed by Whitehall and by central authorities. And it's time that we empower our own people so we can take more control of our services and the decisions about them in Cornwall. I think it's essential as well that we ensure that there is more affordable housing for our local people, and also that there's housing available for rent at a reasonable price with good security of tenure. I think it's essential that our local people have jobs which pay a decent wage so they can afford to live, pay their bills and enjoy our lovely environment. I think it's essential that there's more work-life balance for people. More and more in recent years we've been expected almost to be like hamsters running round a wheel, and we need to have more time with our families and our friends and work less hours rather than having to work more and more. And lastly, I think it's essential that we have decent transport system for people. Since the Beeching report, we've seen railways closed down, and since privatisation, the fares on the trains and the buses have gone up and up, and it's now there's hardly any choice for people but to use their own cars. So we need to make public transport much cheaper and much more reliable so people will use it.
So Ian, is voting Green a wasted vote then?
People have always used this argument against us. The big parties say, well, if you get us into power, we will ensure that the environment is protected, we will improve your lifestyles for us. For example, in 1997, people had a great hope for the Labour Party when they were elected, but look what the result has been. We've had massive problems with the banking system. We've had continued pilfering by the MPs when they said they would clean up Parliament when they were elected. We've had the problems with the credit crunch, which has caused a recession. The other thing, people voted Labour in the hope that there'd be more peace, and what we've had during the time of the Labour government is the invasion of Iraq and also the invasion of Afghanistan, and many of our young people have been killed as a result, as well as all of the people that live in those countries. So I think it's time now that people vote with their consciences and give the Green Party a chance. Secondly, we have a wide range of policies in regard to not just the environment, but in terms of jobs, the economy, transport system, energy, etc. In terms of climate change, the main political parties all say they're going to do something about addressing the issue, but all they seem to do is to just tinker around the edges. And what we need is fundamental change in the way we live and the way our economy is organised if we are to ensure that there's carbon dioxide reductions so our children and our grandchildren have a future, and our planet has a future.
So Ian, could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I've lived in Cornwall since 1997, and I live in the village of Portlow, which is a very nice little community on the south coast of Cornwall. I'm married to my wife Pam, and I have 2 children who both go to the local school in Varian. As a job, I work for the Care Quality Commission, and I inspect care homes and domiciliary care agencies, and with the aim of trying to bring improvement of those services. I've been a member of the Green Party for a number of years, and I think it's very important that our party tries to bring improvement to the lives of people in Cornwall, and addresses the major challenges that we have in regard to climate change and this unsustainable economic growth that we currently have.
Ian, we can see our prices of energy going up and up each year. What's the Green Party going to do about the future of our energy supplies?
Yes, I agree. Labour Party and the Conservatives always said that with privatisation that would provide more competition and cheaper energy prices for us all. But as we know, the prices, as you quite rightly say, have gone up and up and up. Some of this is about big business taking as much profit as possible, but also it's about the decreasing supply of energy that there is. Our North Sea oil's running out, for example, and the Green Movement as a whole is worried about what we see as peak oil, where the supply of oil is gradually going to begin to reduce, and therefore oil will become more expensive. We're seeing now in our country that we're having to buy gas from overseas, and the Russians have, for some countries like the Ukraine, have held them to ransom about the gas price. Subsequently, what the Greens believe is that we need to be more and more efficient about the fuels that we do use, and also to look at alternative sources of energy. In Cornwall, for example, we have a wonderful environment where we can utilise our natural resources. We've got the waves all around our coastline, and we should be able to invest in wave power so we can utilise that as a source. We've got our wind farms and also solar energy. So the Greens believe that what we need to do is to invest in these natural resources so we can utilise them for the benefit of us all.
So what's the Green Party's policy on transport? Surely it's not realistic to give up our cars.
The Green Party would argue that probably the way that the current government and the previous governments has looked at transport, that they have made it very, very difficult for us to give up our cars. But we'd argue that not only that, because our roads are so clogged up with traffic, and even down here in Cornwall we see more and more long traffic jams, and it takes longer for us to get to places, but also with the threat of climate change, that we really have to do something about the problem. What we would do is, rather than invest in building more and more roads, which may solve the problem for a couple of years, but then we're back to square one again as more and more cars come on our roads, is what we'd do is we'd take that money away from road building and we begin to reinvest it in our rail network, so the railways become more efficient and more pleasurable to travel on. They become cheaper, and also that the railways link up with local bus services, which also should be cheaper and more efficient for people to use. So people can make that choice, and it's much better for them rather than having to go into the town via the big traffic jam and pay loads of money to park their car. We would say, leave the car at home, and we'll ensure that it's a positive choice to use public transport. We'd also argue that what has happened over the years is that there's been more and more out-of-town shopping centres, but what we need to do is to reverse this trend, so we invest in our local communities, so there become shops in our villages again. What we would argue is that we would like to encourage people to live and to work close together, so people don't have to travel miles and miles each day in their cars, and this would be beneficial to them so they can spend more time with their families and their friends, and also beneficial to the environment, so there's not CO2 emissions and climate change.